Good morning. I'm very excited this morning about this initiative as we would like to welcome everyone to our convention. And this particular initiative, we want to introduce some very distinguished folks this morning. We thank the White House and Univision for the work that they're doing with us. And we're happy that you're here for our Hispanic Family Engagement Symposium. I'm Olga Thornton, the National PTA President, and I'm proud to be a part of this symposium to recognize the important work that the Hispanic community is doing to improve family engagement between our schools and our communities. On behalf of the National PTA, it's my honor to co-sponsor this event with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. For nearly 30 years, the Hispanic Heritage Foundation has led the efforts to improve leadership, workforce opportunities for the Latino community on numerous youth and community programs. The Hispanic Heritage Foundation has improved the lives of thousands of Americans and created thousands of jobs and opportunities and encouraged a culture of leadership and civic responsibility and instilled an intense work ethic in our nation's youth. We are very excited to join together with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation today to discuss additional ways to engage Hispanic families and schools so we can ensure that our nation's schools are great for our students. I would like to introduce Mr. Jose Antonio Tadierno, the President and CEO of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, and who will now say a few words on behalf of the foundation.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Olga, and thank you, Charlotte, for being so welcoming as we've been here. I want to thank you for making sure the temperature is like my native Nicaragua. I feel like I'm at home right now, except there's no mango trees, but thank you for that. And Olga, it's been a privilege to serve under your leadership. You've left an indelible mark on this historic organization, proud organization. But I know it's a good one. Thank you for everything that you've done as I've had ideas or as I roll off the board that I was able to sign an MOU with the National PTA so I can continue to be involved, and that's very important as we move forward. And a big thank you to Nathan and the PTA team, especially Beth, who did a tremendous job of pulling this together. You truly deserve a round of applause. This is the first ever Family Engagement Symposium during the annual conference. And it's successful because of who came, and that includes all of you who are leaders in your own right. And I want to just highlight a couple of leaders that mean a lot to me personally and to my organization, but more importantly to the Latino community and to the United States. Alejandra Ceja from the White House Initiative on Excellence in Education for Hispanics. You have done a tremendous job of not just focusing on the last 25 years, but where we're going from here. And you've always said that you can't do it alone. And that's why you spend all your time traveling around the country, engaging different Latino organizations and non-Latino organizations and companies to work together to promote education for Latinos. But we can't do it alone either. And every time we look back, you're right there supporting us. So thank you, Alejandra. And Bob Llamas, thank you for your dedication. Your dedication's in your actions, and you have supported every crazy idea I have, which means they stop being crazy when you support them. So I want to thank you for that. You're in action when other people at your level are watching or just trying to figure out what to do, and you actually jump in and take action. Thank you for setting an example. Univision's Heart Pulse starts with you and goes on to your entire team. So Univision, thank you for your leadership in our community. We're trying to strengthen engagement and support for Latino families, and ultimately create a better learning environment for Hispanic students who currently make up 1 in 4 students in the entire population in our schools. But first, the National PTA and other organizations and companies need to get to know the unique, complex, and diverse Latino community. Bob will cover that, and so will his team with Univision. But I took another approach. I wanted to get informed from the viewpoint of the student. So we took part in a broad national study. We call it Taking the Pulse of the American High School Student. And one of the questions we asked was around parental engagement from the standpoint of the student's view. And it was remarkable what we found. We did it with mycollegeoptions.org, and we had a sample size of 5,000 students. We were able to dig deep, and this is data that just came out this week, and we haven't shared it with anyone. We'll be doing it on the Hill. But Hispanic students are least likely to say that they use their parents as a resource to learn and paying for college. 3 out of 4 Latino students rely on their guidance counselor for information about paying for college. Hispanic students were least likely to say their parents are involved enough in their education, while Caucasian and African American students were most likely to say their parents are involved enough. And 40% of first-generation college-bound students report wishing their parents were more involved in their education, compared to 23% of students whose parents attended college. Students from lower-income families were almost twice as likely to say they wish their parents were more involved with their education compared to students from higher-income families. And Hispanic and African American students were the most likely to report they would like their parents to be more involved in their education. And finally, African American and Hispanic students were least likely to say that their parents will help them choose a college, least likely to say parents will help them with the financial aid process, and least likely to say their parents will help them with Maine. So there's a real need in our community for more parental engagement. I know when I was a kid, half of us were running around trying to get away from our parents. But it really demonstrates the great need and the great amount of work that we have to do in focusing on this. And I know the National PTA and the local PTAs are up to the task. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. This morning, I'm proud to announce that the National PTA and Hispanic Heritage Foundation have signed an official memorandum of agreement and understanding. This will help us better collaborate with and educate PTA leaders on effective ways to engage Hispanic families. National PTA will leverage the Foundation's tremendous reach in the Hispanic community in an effort to bolster student success. Specifically, National PTA will promote a webinar series on best practices on school and family partnerships. National PTA will focus on STEM and promote the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and their STEM symposia, and also incorporate their strategies in both our PTA Schools of Excellence and our Urban Family Engagement Networks. Folks, I am so proud of this announcement. I'm proud of this. I would now like to introduce our moderator of this esteemed symposium, Mr. Nathan Manel, the Executive Director of National PTA.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're very pleased to have you here as our guest. I'm supposed to read out the script. I'm just going to talk to you. I'm very excited to be here to help moderate this symposium and the 2 panels we'll have. We have very exciting and inspiring leaders who are here, experts in their field who we can all learn from. As we were meeting this morning, I said, we are all students about how we can do this better. In spite of progress we think we might have made, there's always gaps in our understanding. We're so happy to have folks here. I've only been to the National PTA for 2 months now, so you're not allowed to ask me any questions. I'll be asking all the questions because I'm still kind of new. But in that short period of time, I have become so aware of how committed the National PTA and all of our local PTA units and our state PTAs are around making sure that families are at the table in every way, that when we're making decisions about policy or practice, when we're talking about individual students, the role of parents is so important. And it doesn't matter who we're talking to. when we were meeting with the Secretary of Education about a week and a half ago, or we're meeting my local PTA in my school with my 2 students, we all have the same understanding that when families are engaged in meaningful ways, the schools function better and the students succeed in their learning environments in much better ways. The challenge is that we're not uniformly successful in how we reach out to families, and that's hard for us to accept and to acknowledge. So we, in spite of all of our good intention, in spite of all of our goodwill, in spite of our desire to welcome everybody to the table, there are barriers that exist that prevent that from happening. In the Hispanic community, for sure, we have language barriers, we have cultural norms that we just presume everybody should join the norm. Well, there isn't a norm, there are norms, right? So the way that we do things may not be the way that things should be done, and the way that we act or behave may drive other people away from the process. And not only that, some of our Latino brothers and sisters face a perception of not being welcomed in our PTAs or in our schools, and sometimes perhaps there is a cold reality that maybe perhaps they're not. So for all of us, the full range from great intention to those who may not have great intention. We're all here in this room together to learn from folks who can help us do a better job than we're doing today. I know this isn't the first thing we've ever done on this issue, but it certainly won't be the last. And through the MOU that we've signed, through the partnership we have with Univision, we are very excited about the possibility of increasing our success and our capacity as an organization. I do want to announce that we are excited to share with you that this event is currently being live streamed to the PTA YouTube page, and you can follow the conversation on Twitter at hashtag Hispanic Ed or hashtag PTA CONV15. It's my privilege to introduce our first speaker this morning. Bob Llamas will provide us with an overview of the changing demographics in the United States and how that relates to issues of education policy. He is an executive vice president and corporate officer for Univision Communications Incorporated, and they are the leading media company informing, empowering, entertaining, and advocating for Hispanic America. He is responsible for leading the company's human resources and community empowerment initiatives. Throughout his time at Univision, Bob has helped bring a voice to the Hispanic community. Prior to his work there, he worked in high-level leadership positions at many prestigious organizations, including Nielsen, the Lehman Brothers, the Cleveland Clinic, GE, TRW, the Southern California Edison. He holds a master's degree in organizational development like me, but his is from Pepperdine University, and he has a bachelor's degree from California Polytechnic University. He's won numerous awards for his influential leadership and work that has improved the lives of Latino Americans across the nation. At the end of the presentation, Bob will be joined by Stephen Levine, who is the Vice President of Community Empowerment Initiatives for Univision. He manages their community empowerment initiatives, their pro-social campaigns that provide the Hispanic community with access to the information, resources, and tools necessary to achieve success. He personally has played an integral role in development and launch of the Univision Contigo, which is the Univision with You empowerment platform, and expansion of the company's investment and partnership efforts to empower and serve the 55 million Hispanics here in the U.S. Let's welcome Bob and later Steve.
Got this mic, is it working? Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
I know. Me dijeron que hay unos aquí que queríamos que debíamos el discurso en español, y no lo podemos hacer porque tenemos que hacer en inglés. Pero después de la reunión, pues, si se quieren apuntar aquí afuera, podemos hablar con ustedes. That was just a message that some people had thought that this might be in Spanish.
Just move it up.
So what?
Just move it up.
I don't know, I'll yell. Anyway, listen, I delighted to be here. We had a meeting this morning with It's not a wrong meeting. Anyway, we had a meeting this morning with your executive leadership. We're very, very excited about the relationship that we have with PTA right now and with the future that we have together, particularly as you see this demography and how it's going to change, I think, the face of education, the face of how people teach and how they relate to neighborhoods. I would start also by saying thank you very much for all the work that you do. My family back in New York City is engaged in the PTA. My sister Bob is a president of one of the school organizations. My wife is getting very involved, and it's really where things happen. So thank you for your dedication. I'm really not the demographer that they said I was, so I'm not going to talk a lot about the demographics. I think it only takes 4 or 5 pages, which you'll see later in the presentation to get the point. I do want to talk a little bit about our company, Univision. I want to talk to you about our connection to our community, the way we serve our community in the various platforms. And then I want to start centering in on the emphasis around education and the reason. And part of that is the demography. After that, so I'll do kind of some high-level stuff. After that, I'll turn it over to Stephen Levine, and Stephen will take you through 5 or 6 discrete products and programs, which I think you should be excited about because you can use them. And then after that, Joanne Ruyan, who's also accompanying me, will be on the panel. So let me just get started. This is Univision. It was 4 or 5 years ago, basically 3 networks and a bunch of local stations. And it has now moved with our population. Hispanics over-index in consumption of media around certainly mobile phones, online, games, and every other which way. And we have moved with them. So we have become a very broad-based, multi-platform, contemporary company. And we do very, very well by any measure of success, whether it's on the operating side, whether it's on ratings or whatever. We compete very, very well with the other top 4 companies, which I won't name because I don't like them that much, but we do pretty well. So across every platform. And so one thing we know about our population is it's increasingly mobile and consumes everything from telenovelas to Darth Vader. We're gonna keep talking as you do that. Okay. Yeah. Should I keep going? Try it?
Yes.
Is that good?
Much better.
So anyway, this is, as I was saying, our community is very, very mobile and consumes telenovelas, soccer matches, everything else, mostly on the phone, some online, and a lot in those hours when they go home. I heard an interesting story, and I'll tell you more about our connection, but a woman said to me, I'm from Uruguay. We came here to the United States, typical immigrant experience. Both my parents worked, my father worked 2 jobs, and the kids all went to school. 2 of us were in university, and we just ran right with tremendous opportunity in this country, except every night at 8 o'clock. We were Uruguayan again. We sat in front of Canacle, and we're again Uruguayan. And that's a story about our community, that's a story about our connection too. We have a special relationship with our community. In corporate terms, it shows up this way. Burke Associates measures brand equity, which is how powerful is the brand of the CBS and NBC. In this case, Univision. We have the #1 media brand among all media companies, including digital. We have one of the top 5 along with Google and Coca-Cola and McDonald's. Highly, highly recognized. And the way this study works, just to show you, is first of all, you'll show them the Univision Tula. He's over there. And you say to the audience, who is this? And they say, it's Univision. Or you show them CBSI, and they say, that's CBS, or the Peacock. It's NBC, right? So 91% recognition, that's comparable to some of the higher companies. But what we really win is when you ask the second question. What does it mean to you? What do you think about it? So you might say Olympics, you might say 60 Minutes. Our people say trust, pride, value, responsibility, loyalty. That's our connection. And it's a tremendous thing because we have a unique relationship in media to our community. This is a corporate expression. I will tell you that the more intimate and the more powerful expression of the relationship is in the thousands of calls that we get to. My child just got suspended. What do I do? Who's the best dentist? My house is on fire. What do I do? Every imaginable call. Because we reach out to our community, not only in the media space, but we're with them every single day in everything that they do. Our general manager in Phoenix, who routinely wins the ratings awards and a bunch of other awards for civic engagement. When I asked him, how do you manage to beat the big guys on ratings and how do you manage to do so well? He said, look, I'm blessed with about a 30% Hispanic demography. But what we have found repeatedly and tirelessly is if we go hang out with them in the community, they're very likely to watch us. So this is a very, very unique and treasured relationship that we have with our community expressed either in corporate terms or in intimate terms. So it extends to the responsibility that we have to not only be a media company where we provide information to people and perhaps access to resources, but to actually get out and engage with them on a physical basis. So if you compare us to other community-based organizations, we probably do more just in the community. The fact that we're a media company helps because we can talk to people about those events. We organized ourselves 2 years ago to be more effective and to better deliver on the trust that our community has in us. Under a master brand called Univision Contigo, or Univision with you. And we organized the community empowerment platforms, and we clearly moved from community relations, which is, you know, a lot of people and you know the mayor's deputy, to empowerment. With a couple of simple goals. First of all, our mission, our corporate mission, the business mission, is to, Univision's mission is to inform, entertain, empower, and advocate on behalf of Hispanic America. A year ago, Antonio knows it, we added advocate. We saw what you saw. We saw children, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, masked on our borders, piled up like pieces of meat. I looked at those pictures and I said, oh, that's me when I was 3, that's me when I was 7. I said, they look just like that. And so we decided we better start to advocate. In that case, we didn't advocate for legalization or legal entry into the government. All we said was they're children. And they're in the United States of America. So we ran a very, very big campaign and a lot of pressure on the humane treatment of these children. So when issues come along, we took on charter schools in New York City. Because although New York City has to fix its basic delivery system around education, there's room for charter schools, particularly due to the fact that 95% of the enrollees are African American and Hispanic. So we just thought we should take a position. We try to take positions that are at the heart of what's important to our community without trying to get politicized. Because as a media company, we need to be open to all points of view. Our audience deserves it. Around Contigo, what we told ourselves was, first and foremost, we're going to pick those things that are most important to the dreams and the destiny of a population on the move. And then we're going to organize ourselves around it and run down a path to first and foremost inform them. Secondly, give them access to a tool or a method, mostly digital, but sometimes physical, where they can actually get better information, put themselves in motion, get better. And then we're going to deal with empowerment, which is to measure the fact that they move from one place to another. That as a result of attending a parental academy, or as a result of taking Reto 28, which is a 28-day health program, that the parental academy I became more confident in dealing with the school system. We're going to be able to find measures in which people move from here to here. And when they came out of it, they felt more powerful and more confident. So it became an empowerment program, not a community relations program, not an information program. And we organized in this fashion. I'll come back to education in a second, but Access to healthcare, very, very strong position on the ACA, Obamacare, and everything else we can do around healthcare. We'll share some results with you later. But we just completed health fairs, and we showed up, I think, around 35,000 people. About 10,000, 10,000 actually got health screening. In one location alone, Phoenix, we sent 21 people to the hospital. And you say to them, why? My gosh, I mean, we can't read, the chart can't read your pressure. Or why don't you go to the doctor? Well, I know. Well, why did you come to this? Well, because you guys asked me. Or you told me. So healthcare is very, very important around wellness and prevention. We have this, those of you who might see Canal 40, I think it's in this area. Dr. Juan's becoming a little bit of a rock star, right? So, but it's really, really important. It's really, really important. Our basic issue is people come to this country, people participate in this country, they work in this country because they want to be prosperous. You can't be prosperous if you're not. You want to raise really, really great children. It's tough to do it if you're not thinking about that. Prosperity. We deal with the individual engagement with people about how they can build assets, how they can build a prosperity, how they can be more effective in the job or the two jobs that they work so they can provide for their families and build an asset base. As we created a lot of movement and kind of that education, we started to get information from people like Experian. We're getting a lot of hits on the credit scores because we told people, you know what, actually, the credit score is very, very important. It's really important. And so now we've been able to develop a product and working with Experian where they actually, our community can get credit for paying the utility bill and the rent. So that they can start to build access. We provided prepaid cards, we provided a starter credit card, a number of products that begin to not only inform and educate people about how you can build prosperity with the hard work that you do and how you can be effective. But we also turned our attention to small business. Hispanics are 2 to 3 times more likely to start a small business than non-Hispanics. They've chosen in their mind that if they're going to provide for their families, that they maybe don't follow the Fortune 100 track, but maybe they can create something for themselves. So that we've worked with Maria Contreras Suite, Small Business Administration, and others, Stanford University, to begin a program to really get after small business ownership, entrepreneurship, especially Latinos. And so as part of our prosperity fairs that we had recently across our major markets, 40,000 people attended. We had embedded small business boot camps. And so we had 3,000 small businesses show up. I don't know if anybody's able to aggregate those numbers like that, but next year it'll be 10,000. And we're just getting at it. So when I asked Vima, tell me about the small business people. Well, they were tall, they were short, they were skinny, they were fat, they were white, they were brown. They came with iPads, they came with papers, they all came to learn how to be more effective in their business and better provide. Civic engagement. We'll be running next week. We'll start a citizenship campaign. We'll be very, very out there with it. We have over 4 million Hispanics who fulfill all the eligibility to become citizens. Just gotta get it. So that they and their families can enjoy the privilege and the benefits of citizenship. We are already, believe it or not, working very, very hard on the 2016 voter registration and voter turnout. The fundamental fact is this is actually the way this country works. If one group of people vote for something, it's probably going to work. It's probably going to happen. We have a great demography in creating more and more eligible voters. For example, 66,000 Hispanics turn 18 every month. But we have to get a yield rate. We have to get them registered. We have to get them voters. Hispanics are going from 1 in 6 Americans to 1 in 1. And every year a big event comes along, like a 4-year election, if you don't show up in the numbers we should, people begin to say, see, it doesn't matter how many. We have voters we need to know that there's 11.5 million Hispanics living in the shadows for lack of documentation, who cannot vote. We have, as Antonio has said, millions and millions of Hispanic children who are living in systems that are underperforming, who cannot vote. Hispanics have to know that it's not just that little discussion they have with themselves about, should I go vote tonight? No, there's people that you have to speak up about. So we're going to go out all our assets, whether it be news, community empowerment, the local state. We're going to hit voter registration very, very hard. And so civic engagement is a big deal. And it really is that, with this destiny, with fulfilling this American dream, regardless of what country you come from, regardless of whether you're third, fourth, or fifth generation Hispanic, you gotta engage. And so the next one I'll tell you about is education. There is nothing more important in our outreach and programs and community side than education. Education is the #1 aspirational value of every Hispanic family and every Hispanic family. Every survey we do, everything we do, whether it's through news or community, where else, it's always important. Always important. So when we started with college readiness because a college degree was, again, in this country and among our families, probably the #1 credential to say, I've attained educational success. We also started because I said it didn't escape us, and 66,000 people were turning 18. Hispanics were turning 18 every month, and we had to get them early and get them ready for college. Well, the news is good. Hispanic high school graduates enroll in college at the same rate as the Hispanics. And so we do a lot. We do a lot in college. Stephen will talk to you about a few of those. We then, with the advent, as you guys would know, love it or hate it, of Common Core and academic standards and how that was shifting and the expectations that were being created, and our concern as to where Hispanics would initially be on that spectrum, we started working very, very hard with our partners, the Gates Foundation and others, and Joanne led a really big charge about informing our people about Common Core or academic standards in Texas and other places. But more importantly, knowing them, knowing what we should be working with a child on, and increasingly more and more performing to them. So we do an awful lot around performance, knowledge, and standards, getting parents to engage increasingly more so that the child knows, the parent knows that the child's being taught at, and so that they can perform to it. As we did that, then about 2 years ago, we began to try to fill out the range, which was to begin to talk about early childhood development. Much of the research that we got from our friends at Too Small to Fail indicated, basically on socioeconomic, but it impacted a lot of our families, was that many of our families' children were entering kindergarten and preschool at, with a vocabulary half of other children. It was amazing because when we started talking to our parents about it on early childhood development, we said to them, it's pretty simple. If you spend 15 minutes a night consistently reading, talking, singing, showing shapes to your child, they will double their vocabulary every time. Very powerful tool came out of research. We introduced a program called Pequeños y Valiosos. We told the guys Too Small to Fail doesn't translate well in Spanish. Kind of hate it, even though that's your name, but Pequeños y Valiosos, small but that. And we started this program. We got 25,000 Hispanic parents to take a pledge to read 15 minutes to sign up online. We downloaded tools once a week in terms of how to become more effective. We ran the program again this year. We picked up another 25,000. And it's all about how you work with your children to develop their brain, get wired, and then secondly, how you begin to build the capability that they have. Our children are our most valuable and our more precious interests. I think for a PTA organization, you should know that we should turn our attention and our hearts to the children so that when they start to come into the system that you work in, they're ready. That they're ready. So whatever relationship you have with parents, the fact of the matter is you may be talking to them about a child that's in school, but oftentimes you're going to have a child that's not in school. And that child's just getting ready, and you should turn attention to early childhood development. We've had significant, let's make my body shake. We've had significant results. And I told you before, the reason we wanted the results, this is not a brag check. What we really wanted to do is we wanted to say, first of all, if you come up with the right things that are important to our community, and if you create a way to measure and drive measurable results, and it creates a big movement. Number one, it validates the areas of good. Two, it shows that the program is being successful in terms of the empowerment that is created. But more importantly to me is that it begins to allow you to tell non-Hispanics about Hispanics. They're on the move. They want these things. They're willing to sacrifice together. 4 years ago, we planned to have an education fair, it might have been 5, in Los Angeles, and we said, we're going to have an education fair. And so what we heard was, wait a minute, you're going to have an education fair on a Saturday for Hispanics at a college? Yeah. Okay. 50,000. I thought that we had Bob Llamas there. 50,000 people. And so those are the kind of numbers we were getting. So here you go. $82 million in airtime in terms of the value of it. We raised $21 million for children in need through St. Jude's that have gone, and for children on the border. In our community affairs and community programs, we have over 2 million people show up last year. In this program, it's just massive numbers. We registered 74,000 voters in an off-year election. 250,000 phone calls just on the community programs. And you can see the health scores. And so far this year, 38,000 at the prosperity fairs, 40,000 at the education financial workshops. Over $250,000 have taken the reto 28. Again, on Mackenzie Valioso, 20,000, total now 45,000. Clave al Éxito is a wonderful product which you'll hear about from us that you guys can use and you're welcome to use it. And the health week numbers that are coming. It's nice that on behalf of our community, we're receiving a lot of recognition for the programs. This recognition belongs to the community. But you can see that this measurable movement we're creating, this promotion of Hispanics, moving in their destiny toward being healthier, achieving higher education, being more prosperous, and being more engaged in the civic affairs of this country, have begun to get the recognition we had hoped. Not for the company, because now we can tell. Look at this one, Ready Nation. Former CEOs and CEOs of business organization decides to create an award called the Business Champion for Children. So now we can talk to the CEOs about our children. So the recognition is there, it's important, but it belongs to the community, and it's a consequence of the fact that they move. We could have had 55 community events and got no movement, and there would be no recognition. It really allows us to turn Hispanics back to non-Hispanics, to say they're on the move. The road ahead, one or two here that I will mention to you. Broadband student connectivity, something you're familiar with. 91% of schools are now routinely giving homework through the internet and assuming that the child has internet connectivity. 50% of Hispanic children do not. I don't blame the school system. I mean, they got to catch up to the 90s, right? They got to get this done. But it is really like giving textbooks to half the class. It is really, really tough. Antonio's done some landmark research around the connectivity and the toll that it takes on our families. I mean, how many children can you have doing homework assignment at 12:30 a.m. when your dad's phone? And there's only so many libraries. We have to tell our parents that the school system has moved to that point, and that getting connected is no longer a casual decision. It's as important as electricity or refrigerator. And then we have to help them with every discount, every partnership, everything. It's taking a toll on our families. I'm hopeful that as we begin to get more and more of our children connected, that they will then be the portal through which the whole family is connected. Because everything now is on the website. So think about the discussions that you see at the doctor's office. If we can get our families also more empowered through the number one interest, education of the children. And that's going to be a very, very, very good benefit to the community. I will tell you this, the single biggest business miracle I have seen in my life has been how the web took you from being a user to a producer. And how everybody can produce something on the web, right? The website, business, whatever. Just watch out. When you start to get the power of the innovation of our children and everyone else who are multicultural, bilingual, and have this great sense of experiences, powerful enough with access to the web, you're going to stop this system. So not only in education, not only bringing the family into this age, but also in our ability to contribute. So we're going to push a lot on connectivity, starting by informing our parents about what's at stake. Secondly, trying to get a whole lot of partners to help us provide value and how they get connected. And then third, we already have developed a program by which we're able to talk to our parents about the responsible use of the web at home. So that's going to be a big campaign for us, and I know you guys see it all the time in the area of education. Stephen, are you going to talk about student voice?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm going to leave this one alone. That's the path ahead. Again, nothing we do in terms of our empowerment programs is more important than education. I told you why. It's the number one aspiration, whether you're a recent immigrant or whether you've been around for a long time. It's the number one thing that parents care about and the thing that Hispanic youth care about. But the other reason to do it is the demography is just so compelling. So that even if you didn't have a big value base, you would say the numbers are so big that you got to turn to education. And so I'll just do a little bit of that for you. 25% of the babies born in the U.S. are Hispanic. If you're in California, Texas, and New Mexico, it's 1 out of 2. It is your next generation of students. Hispanics are 1 in 6 Americans now. In the next 30 or 40 years, it'll be 1 in 3. It's not quite that we're taking it back, but maybe. But 1 in 3. And it's going to be mostly fueled by youth. So they're your next students. Minorities accounted for 100% of the growth in total enrollment. This 4-year period of 9 to 13. I'm going to reference that 1 in 4 school-age children are Hispanic. If you look about the representation of either PTA congresses or whatever, or even teachers, it's certainly not keeping up with that proportion. So this just suggests more work for us and for the PTA to do. You're not only getting more Hispanics into teaching and into administration jobs and into the PTA, but in beginning to provide more education and awareness about these children. What do they care about? What do their parents care about? What do their parents tell them today? How do they view schools, et cetera, et cetera. 1 out of 5 high school students is Hispanic, so 66,000 turn 18 every month. And you can see the growth that is getting bigger and bigger. More Hispanics are completing high school, 80%. As I told you before, Hispanics who graduate, 80%, they are enrolling in college at the same rate as non-Hispanics. Is that number there on the enrollment? 72% of Hispanics, 7 out of 10 adults feel education very important. Not somewhat important, but important, very important to themselves and to their families. I love Antonio's statistic about the view of all teenage kids who say, I actually want my mom and dad more involved in school. I don't. You keep hearing a lot about millennials and trying to figure them out. That is a culture that, in other words, my family's close. When my dad goes to work, his family's close. When I go to school, I want my family to be close. And yet, there are issues, which I would say, it's not a criticism, I just tell you that in my experience, there are issues about how confident Hispanic parents are in engaging in the school system. Many of our countries of origin don't allow it. Secondly, I'm not very educated. That's why I came to this country. Or I haven't been able to get a degree. And the principal and the teachers all have degrees. I don't feel very powerful. I don't feel like I have a lot of authority. And you know what? At the end of the day, they got my kid. So we work a lot in our parental academies about figure out a way to make it community-based, do whatever you can. Be annoying. It's okay. It's okay. You know, when we said just read to your child 15 minutes a day, you can do that. Well, I'm not a teacher. No, you can do that. You can go ask the school. All I want to know. All I want to know is my daughter, Maria, being taught the same as Sonia Johnson. That's all. So it's a big value. Kids want it, parents want it, just die. We have to work together to be sure that the schools and the teacher base are more welcoming and more friendly, and that our parents are more comfortable in an area that they don't feel that welcome. So we have to do that. It's a big value set. I would just tell you that the statistics alone get you. There's no 1 in 6 to 1 on 1 and 25%. You saw 70%, 80%. The statistics get you. But what should get you, what should really get you, is a commitment to get to understand more about Hispanics and about what drives them, about their values. Because at the end of the day, you could just take a position that the numbers are going to come through the system that I currently have and participate on as a PTA leader, and I'll deal with it. Or you could say, I really want to be effective. And if I really want to be effective, then I'm going to want to know a little bit more about how to be effective in this country. I'd leave you with that. It's a big charge for us. And I tell every Hispanic group that I talk to, this is one of them, but every Hispanic group, 1 in 6 going to 1 in 3. This is going to be your country. Take care of it. And I say the same thing to you. This is going to be your brother and sister, already by large numbers. And I would say to you, it's about this country. It's about the United States of America and how it is that we continue to do what we've done through the years by figuring out ways to best integrate and collaborate. And so, I'll leave you with kissing Hispanic today.
Thank you very much, Bob. My name is Stephen Levine. I work with Bob and Joanne at Univision, and I'm just going to share with you really just about 4 or 5 quick major focus areas for. I'll speak from here. For Univision and education for the next year. So our focus areas, as Bob said, in education are early childhood development, academic standards, and really the awareness of and the preparation for the increasing academic standards in many parts of the country, and then college readiness and access. So in early childhood, this is one program that Bob mentioned that we launched a year and a half ago called Pequeños y Valiosos, Young and Valuable. And so essentially with this program, Univision invites Latino parents and caregivers and grandparents to commit to take a pledge to engage with their children under the age of 5 for at least 15 minutes a day by talking, reading, counting, singing with their children every day, because the research shows that doing so will double their vocabulary and, as all of you know, make them really much more prepared for school in the future. We focused on the power of bilingualism and numeracy, early numeracy skills, and we've really driven to date 45,000 families to make this commitment. So we really, what we tried to do in each of these slides is just identify one quick way that PTAs, like many of the organizations you all represent, can help us and help this community better access and understand these materials. So essentially we have, and we will be happy to share with you, Spanish language materials for families on early childhood education, and we can also invite Latino families in your PTA chapters or in your schools to take this commitment, and we will send them weekly tips by text or by email on how they can continue to engage their families. K through 12 parental engagement. Obviously, this is a major focus not only for Univision, but obviously for the PTA. And as Bob mentioned, we launched a mobile tool called Clave al Éxito, which means key to success. And Clave al Éxito, I will show you a quick 1-minute video on it, but basically it is a tool that really invites Hispanic parents to better engage, to learn how they can better engage with the school system. It includes a teacher communicator that enables Hispanic parents to write a note to their teacher, write an email to their teacher in Spanish. It will translate it and send it to that teacher in English. With the help of the National PTA, we have integrated grade-by-grade guides on what their children are expected to learn each year of their education, so that the parents are better informed when they're speaking not only to their students, but also to teachers. There are grade-specific book recommendations that are aligned with the academic standards, and also reading logs. We know that many Latino families may not submit reading logs in the younger grades because they're just not aware of the need to do so. And so what we've done is we've actually created a Spanish language reading log for parents that then they can share with their teachers in English. I'm going to just show you a quick video from Jorge Ramos, who is our main news anchor on Univision. So here it is. He's much better at telling you about this than I am. And so here you are. Ooh, and I hope the audio will work. So I will just speak here for Jorge Ramos in the interest of time. So at the end of the day, as I said, Clave al Éxito is we're good. It's a mobile tool, and essentially we know that as Bob mentioned, many Latino families may not have access to high-speed internet at home, but virtually all of them have and use smartphones. So we effectively developed this tool really with their needs in mind and with the technology that they prefer in mind. We will be hosting with the PTA, the National PTA, this August, a webinar, I believe, for all of the state leaders in the PTA to explain how Clave al Éxito works. We will also be making it bilingual, in other words, adding an English version, which normally in this country is the other way around. But at Univision, we're Spanish first. This fall as well. So we are really excited about this tool. We see this as really a principal way that Univision can help you better engage with Hispanic families and provide them with tools in one central place to share with them. And by the way, if you have any content or information that you think would be valuable on this tool, I think as Nathan said this morning, we are here to learn as well. So you're on the ground every day. Please let us know if there's information or content that you think would be valuable for Latino families in your area, and we'd be happy to add it to this tool. Bob also mentioned Parent Academy workshops. We have been really proud to co-host many of these workshops with the National PTA. Last year we did several together in California. This year we will also be doing them in Chicago. And basically what we've done is we have created essentially a workshop of about 2 hours long that essentially breaks down the kind of the cultural barriers a bit with Latino families to educate them on how they can feel more confident in interacting with their school's teacher. What kind of questions should they be asking at a parent-teacher conference? How can they ensure that their child is getting the education she or he needs as they prepare for college? So these are really the key areas that I think we want to make sure that parents feel more confident in talking to their schools about. If you are interested in hosting a local Parent Academy workshop in your area, we would be happy to send you all of the content and the materials and the videos that we have, and also introduce you to any Spanish language experts that we already know about in your area that can help you as well. We also have an online version of this Parent Academy with 5 different short modules of about 5 minutes each on Clave al Éxito. And you can access Clave al Éxito, I should mention, at univision.com/éxito. So if I know it's in Spanish right now, so if you are one of our English-speaking friends, check us out this fall, or enjoy the webinar that we'll be co-hosting in August. As Bob mentioned, broadband access and computer access is critical to success in education today. We know it. We know that as Antonio has pointed out, there is a homework gap that is emerging among many of our families who do not have reliable access to high-speed internet at home on a computer. And so we are proud this August to launch a campaign to educate Latino families about the importance of having broadband access, inform them of any resources or programs that exist in their regional areas of lower cost broadband access or computer access, and finally give them guidelines and tips on how they can ensure that their family is navigating the internet safely, securely, and responsibly. So we will certainly be providing our team, our partners at the National PTA with resources about this initiative so that you can also help get that out to any families, Latino or otherwise, in your neighborhoods or communities that may not have access to this really critical tool in education today. Finally, obviously college access is a real critical area of interest for our community. And so earlier this year, we launched a campaign on FAFSA, which is a free application for financial student aid. I hope I didn't screw that up. And essentially, we held workshops, financial aid workshops in 12 markets across the country. Over 40,000 people came out to fill out this FAFSA. We were very proud to also host in partnership with the White House Initiative, the First Lady, Michelle Obama, on Univision. She did a PSA with us. She also appeared on Sábado Gigante, which if you have not watched Sábado Gigante, I encourage you to do so. It's very entertaining no matter what language you speak. And so at the end of the day, we're still getting some of the data back, but we are seeing in some school districts, in some counties, we're seeing 10 to 30% increases among Latinos. And so those are basically the 5 real things that, products that we think were most relevant to partnership with many of your local PTA chapters. I do want to thank you. I want to thank your leadership for making Hispanic and Latino outreach a priority. It is so critical not only to the success of our schools and Latino families, but as Bob said, of our country. And so thank you all for making the time to come today.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that presentation from both Bob and Stephen. By the way, my cable provider, I want to work with them so that I can get at home a CC channel, a closed caption channel that will take all the Spanish stations who have all the fun things and translate it to English for me. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. We really appreciate all the things that you're doing for all of us, because when you do it for the Hispanic community, you're helping all of us. We appreciate that so much. And particularly your wellness issues that you were talking about, because we all know that the whole child cannot be served separately from education. Those pieces all come together. If a child doesn't come to school with financial safety and health, they are not ready to learn. And so we appreciate Univision's Contigo program that addresses all of those issues. And we certainly know that broadband is one of those challenges that we're all dealing with. I know in San Antonio, they published a list where you could find free Wi-Fi everywhere across the city. So every student who had access to any kind of equipment could go out and use broadband where it was free across their city. And I think that's something we might all copy as we're on our way toward making sure everybody has good access. So we applaud your work. Thank you for being here with us this morning. We're happy to be partners with you, and we look forward to working with you even more in the future. So we're going to transition this morning to our first panel, and I'm very excited about the guests that we have today. It is a rare opportunity to have as many people who are working on the ground and who are providing national leadership and have expertise in the content that we're discussing this morning. I'd like to first introduce our panelist, Alejandra Ceja. She is the Executive Director of the White House Initiative for Educational Excellence for Hispanics. She has an impressive resume, including working with the U.S. Department of Education, the House Committee on Education and Labor, and the White House Office of Management and Budget. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Mount St. Mary's College in LA, and a master's degree in public administration from Baruch College at the New York City University of New York. Please welcome Alejandra. Our next panelist is equally notable. Sophia Bacam is currently the Family Services Manager for the East Coast Migrant Head Start Project. She provides training and technical assistance to Migrant Head Start staff in multiple states for implementing family services requirements and initiatives supported by the Office of Head Start. Her background includes nearly 7 years of experience as a community advocate for Initiative for Change, which is an international social services agency, where she served as liaison between scholars and indigenous communities. She has an MA with a concentration in family literacy program development from North Carolina State University. Next, I would ask you to allow me to introduce to you Joanne Bruyen. She is the Director of Community Empowerment Initiatives for Univision. She's somebody that we work with closely with in the PTA. She's the director of their community empowered initiatives, as I said, and under the Univision Contigo empowerment platform, she oversees the education campaign and its implementation across television, radio, digital, social media, and outreach efforts. For those of you who are not too well informed, you know the radio presence is very high with the Univision media as well as television. Not all of us are aware of that. She has been managing the education campaign since it launched in 2010. She started working in Univision in 1987 and has extensive experience in television production, and she holds a master's degree in history. Welcome. Our fourth panelist you met already this morning, but for those of you who may have joined us later, it's one of our board members. We're proud to have him here with us, Jose Antonio Tejerino. He is the president and CEO of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. He has been there for 10 years, helping to develop youth programs, including Latinos on the Fast Track, which is known as LOFT. It's a leadership and workforce development program which impacts thousands of students every year. In addition, Antonio has previously worked for a number of prestigious and wide-ranging institutions, such as the Fannie Mae Foundation, Nike, Barson Marsteller, and Conan Wolf, in addition to work with numerous community and national nonprofit organizations. By the way, have you all noticed how many corporations have been impacted by the people who are here today? That's terrific. Additionally, he's been featured in the media as a spokesperson on Latino issues on NBC, Fox, ABC, Univision, Telemundo, and CNN. Please join me in welcoming Tony. Last and certainly not least, on the end, we have Mercedes Serrato. She joins us in her role as the president of the Georgia Hispanic Latino Statewide Community, PTA. Mercedes is very passionate about helping others and ensuring that all members of the community have a voice. Through her work on the advisory board council of La Amistad, try that again, and the Cobb County School District Parental Advisory Board, and as a camp director for social concepts and development service, Mercedes is a champion activist for individuals across the state of Georgia. She attended the Metropolitan College of New York, where she studied human services as a proud mother of 4 and a grandmother of 1. I realize I'm talking very fast, but I think it's important for you to know who these people are, where they come from, because they may not be familiar to you, and hopefully those bios will provide some context about the expertise that's on our panel today. And so I want to welcome each one of you. Bienvenido. I'm pleased today we would ask you to share with us, one by one, your own real-world strategies to engage Hispanic families. And let's begin with Alejandra, and we'll go down the list.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
I am leading a White House initiative whose mission is focused on increasing the educational outcomes and opportunities for the Hispanic community. I think I'll pass. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As I was saying, the White House initiative that I lead focuses on increasing the educational outcomes and opportunities for the Hispanic community. We cannot achieve that mission without parent and family engagement. It is central to the deliverables of trying to make sure that we have the best educated, most competitive workforce in the world. One of the strategies that we're embarking on is identifying bright spots. What are those programs across the country that are working for our Hispanic children from cradle to career? So that when we have policy discussions on the importance of early learning, we can also point to the good work that's happening in communities across the country. So this is an opportunity for you all to get involved and to help us identify those bright spots, those programs that are being led and driven by community leaders that are investing in the future workforce of this country. And I'll just share with you, we've been doing a lot of focus around emerging communities, those communities that are now seeing a growth of Hispanic students in their classroom. If you want to talk about diversity in this country, go to any public school in this country and you will see the diversity, not just coming from the Hispanic community, but from other countries that are represented in the classroom. So I always tell people, if you want to look at what the future of this country looks like, go to any elementary school across the country. And I'll give you an example of a school district that we were working with that I'll highlight as a bright spot, and it's in Springdale, Arkansas. The leadership there recognized that they had a growth of Hispanic students. And they recognized that if they didn't invest early in engaging the parents and working with the students and providing bilingual education, providing services to parents that were culturally relevant, that down the road, their future economy and workforce would be impacted negatively. So this is an example of a community that is investing its attention into a school district where they're seeing a growth of the diversity. And so they're working with parents, engaging them, targeting programs that serve their needs. A lot of these parents are working 2 and 3 jobs, so a lot of the parent engagement programs start in the evenings. They also have them in the weekends. They have tutoring services for the kids. So it's just an example of programs that we're seeing that get it, that understand that we have to address the cultural, the linguistic needs, And many times we have to address the fact that a lot of our Hispanic kids, 67% of our Hispanic children are living below the 200% poverty line. So really just recognizing how we can identify more of those programs and scale them up in other communities where we're seeing a growth of Hispanic children. So I'll just let you know that we cannot drive our mission and achieve our goals without parents. I draw a lot from my own personal experience. My older sister was the one that would always come to my parent engagement conferences. And it wasn't that my mother was not interested in my education. She was intimidated by the process. It was not a welcoming environment. And so my job is to make sure that we can change that we can work with you all to make sure that it becomes a welcoming environment, that we can work in-house at the Department of Education to make sure that our Office of Civil Rights provides information to parents, similar to what Univision is doing on knowing your rights. What are the questions to ask a principal? How do you assess the academic progress of your child? So we've got a lot of resources. We're really trying to drive towards increasing the completion rate of our Hispanic community. Please follow us at Hispanic Ed. Please sign up for our newsletter. We're always trying to put out the latest research. We just had a convening on the importance of early education in Chicago, where we got a $3 million commitment from United Way of Chicago to help increase services for Hispanic kids. So that's a little bit about the work that we're driving, and look forward to our dialogue today. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Like it was said, my name is Bob. I work for a migrant Head Start. It's East Coast Migrant Head Start. I was trying to speak loud. It's not working.
You're coming to adjust, so go
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. As I was saying, I work for a migrant Head Start. It's called East Coast Migrant Head Start. We work in different states. So we have families and centers and programs in the states of Florida, North Carolina, Alabama, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and South Carolina. Multiple centers in those states. So I work with all those different states, and the initiatives and strategies that we have, that we just exchange ideas about families, migrate from within those states and out. The families that we serve are working agriculture, so they follow the crops. We provide educational, holistic education services for the children in the states that they will work. We do services on health, education, family services for the children and their families. So as you can already tell, our population has many challenges, and they are very different from the different other Hispanic or Latino communities that you may see in your English schools. However, our children also go to the schools. They will stay in those states at some point while the parents are working and attend private school. The challenges or the strategies that we work with while the children are with us is the development of their own home language and English. That is one of we take that very seriously. We try for the families and the children to continue with their own traditions, their own language. So we have done a lot of work within the curriculum that we use to incorporate the family. That's where our family engagement strategies come. That we hear from the families and incorporate that in our teachings in the centers. We also, during data and all the assessments that the Office of Head Start mandates, we have identified that our children have high levels or have our population have high levels of obesity. So we do a lot of strategies trying to work with families to educate and also facilitate that talks and changes for the obesity to minimize our obesity rates. We follow the Office of Head Start and Family, the Parent and Family Community Engagement framework in all our strategies. I'm
trying to find
Is this working better? So, the first thing that we do whenever we work with families is to build relationships. Our families do not all come from the Spanish language. We deal with a lot of families with indigenous languages. So whenever we are talking to a family, we try to identify what language and whether they understand us. And so we build relationships through conversations. We listen, we use motivation interviewing whenever we are talking about obesity or any changes that we want to see in families. So we do a lot of technical assistance in those techniques. And I think that just for the first question, I have a lot more to say, but
you have heard a little bit about Univision this morning, I believe. So I'm just going to emphasize the importance of working together, of doing partnership with organizations such as PTA, where we can have our resources being distributed through the local chapters and to the constituents that you work with and the parents that you work with. And just the same, we are a megaphone for all the resources that you have and all the content that you have. And that's the way that we can create impact in the community, for sure. In addition, I would like to talk a little bit about the strategy that we have, because something that might be unique as a media company is that we have a community empowerment director in each of our owned and operated stations. And their sole responsibility is to work with the community, to understand the community, and if we can find those, a partner or match those community directors with your own representatives, that would be a great advantage to move on with the work that we're doing together.
Hey, first of all, if I could just have everyone from the National PTA Board, I'm overwhelmed by your support. If you could just stand up, my colleagues on the board. With your colleagues in terms of taking on this issue. So thank you all for your leadership. And by the way, they've done this job for 15 years, and the network is actually 150,000 that are challenged with reaching at least 1,000 each. So it's a pretty good equation there. So on a very personal level, my wife and I decided in terms of reaching out to Latino parents and having them more involved in their students' education. It took a grassroots model that Tupperware has made a lot of money using, or Avon and a lot of others. So we actually gather people and have deputized several community members and friends of ours that host Latino families. I mean, half of it is feeling comfortable walking into someone's space where you may be the landscaper for that particular neighborhood, or you may be cleaning someone's homes. And to be able to walk in and be around people that you feel a little more comfortable with and not miss out on all the amazing opportunities that exist is tremendous. We also have a kid that has some issues, learning issues. And I can tell you, as a parent, you don't want to just think, well, pobrecita, you know, she just doesn't have the facilities to be able to learn when she just learns differently. So what we had to go through to get our kid in a special program made me think immediately of what someone else would have to go through that isn't as diligent, that isn't questioning things, that isn't working with the school, that isn't looking up on Google what it is when their children has some of the issues that my child has, what an AP is, what a test is that cost us $3,000 to prove that she had a learning disability. And so we immediately started working in that space as well, because there's a lot of very creative children that are being cast off that don't parents don't realize that their kid actually just learns differently. They just think it just don't. The other thing is, my organization, I'm very proud of this, is working with the unaccompanied minors that have gone from our borders to our communities in droves all over the country. Don't speak any English. 8 out of 10 of the girls have been raped. The boys also have gone through trauma and unspeakable violence that they're escaping. So we're working on arts curriculum in the schools, but involving not just parents, but friends of families, because their parents were mostly left behind in order for them to better assimilate. And boy, it's tough on a teacher to have to teach someone that has gone through all of this trauma. So that's something else that we're doing and we're piloting in Montgomery County, where I'm from. Then with the Army, in 15 markets, we have STEM symposia that we do with the U.S. Army. And one of the things that we added this year is parental engagement. So now we have a symposium for the kids and one for the parents, so that they can see the value of a STEM career. Really easy to just convince someone when you say you can make $1 million more if you have over your lifetime career, if you have a STEM background. And they are vast. People think that they're very complicated. You have to be a doctor or engineer or an astronaut. You don't. There's 1,000 opportunities that exist within that field. Which brings me to another thing that we're doing, again, with parents and the students, is our Code as a Second Language program, CSL, that we're doing right now in over 50 schools in 10 different markets, where we're teaching computer coding over an entire year to the students. Because 90% of schools don't teach computer coding, yet we're going to need about 2 million jobs in technology by 2020, which is only 5 years away. But now we're taking it so that we're teaching the parents as well to learn how to learn with their child in terms of computer coding. And we're now doing it, piloting it this summer at the consulate, the Mexican consulate, and we'll be doing it in 5 different consulates as immigrants are coming into the country. We're adding a very strong element of parental engagement as well, through a partnership we have with Saberes Poder, and they work with all the different consulates in 50 different states, so we're now trying to do that as well. And lastly, just being able to communicate. It starts with an individual in terms of your leadership with the National PTA, and there's a whole room full of them who say it's so great to meet you after hearing all these great things about you. But it really does start with an individual that can just host people coming over their homes to be able to talk about the benefits that your children have, the rights that you and your child have that you don't even know, and how much of an impact you'll have by just working slightly with the school and with the students to make a great impact. So it really isn't complicated. It really does start with each individual leader and then radiates from there.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Good morning, my name is Mercedes. I'm the first Hispanic Latino PTA president, statewide community president. I'm here to first in the nation as well. One of the problems that I have with my Hispanic Latino families in Georgia, engaging them in the PTA, is that it's difficult for them to have the ability to go to places where we have our meetings. It's also difficult for them to make time. As a Hispanic coming into this country, one of the most difficult problems that they have is culture shock. In our countries, they don't have PTAs, they don't have family engagement. So when they come here, we throw them into the school system and we introduce to them, here's the PTA, here's family engagement. They're not used to things like that. What they're used to is having one-on-one communications with the teacher when they go to their countries. You know, when they're in their countries, they have one-on-one communications with their students and parents. So when we come here, it's a completely different, excuse me, I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, as I was saying, what the problem is when they come here, we tell them and we introduce them to the PTA and to family engagement. They're a little skeptical as it is because some of them are not legal, and some of them have no time. Some of them work 2 and 3 jobs just to support their families. And that's something that not everyone understands how it feels to work so many jobs and then make time to go see your children's teacher and try to get involved. You do want to be involved. Believe me, you do want to be involved. But they have difficult time with the time constraints and the families. It's very difficult. So what I try to do with my families in the PTA is I make time for them. I'll either go see them after school, after 9 o'clock at night. I'll still take calls and I still try to reach out to them and try to figure out what it is that they need and what are the needs for the community. I do linkages between whatever nonprofit organizations and events that are being out there and with the families. I try to give them linkages to ASP classes, tutors that are willing to work with them. As far as after like 9, 10 o'clock at night, I'll have a tutor with the family trying to help the child to get better education. So those are the things that I try to work with my families, and I also give them advocacy. I'll go to the schools and I'll discuss with the teachers what's the problem. Even though I do understand we have parent liaisons in school, and I'm really happy that we do. Not all parent liaisons have the time, and they don't have the money, I guess, in the school system to work individually with each child, which is understandable. But as a Hispanic Latina advocate, I try to go to each one and I try to discuss with them what the situation is with the child. I've had a child, the mom, every time she goes to school, the teacher's telling her, oh, your son is doing bad in school. And the mom, who does not understand one word she's saying, just smiles at the teacher and says, okay, okay. So one day she asked me if I could go to school with her and translate. So I did, and the mom was totally shocked. She did not understand the fact that her son was not doing well. And she couldn't figure out why, because he was on the computer every day. So she thought he was getting it. So apparently, we ended up turning it around. The child now is getting tutors.
Thank you so much for that. I apologize for the sound system problems we're having. I know it's annoying. We're going to ask a couple questions to the panelists, but I want you to be thinking of questions you want to ask them. So in a few minutes, I'm going to open up the mic for some questions from the audience. So I always worry that I'm the well-intentioned person who's not doing the right thing. So I want to ask each of you as panelists, for those of us in the audience who are well-intentioned but worried that we're going to trip up, can you give us some advice on some common areas where you see folks are trying to do the right thing, making mistakes?
I think that when we talk about engaging the Hispanic community, we have to recognize that our definition of parent and family engagement includes our aunts and uncles, our abuelitos. They all play a significant role. So sometimes not just putting blame that the parent isn't active when they are relying on that family system to kind of get through and survive. So I think just acknowledging that definition of family engagement in the Hispanic community is important, because just in my own experience, having my sister advocate for me or having somebody that spoke Spanish lessen the intimidation for my parents definitely made an impact. So just recognizing the fact that when we talk about the Hispanic community, there's a whole family unit that is engaged in trying to ensure that we have access. We definitely do have to do more about creating those environments where, as the panelists just spoke, you know, I meet them after school, I meet them, you know, after they get out of work. Just recognizing that we've got families that are holding down 2 to 3 jobs, and that we have to tailor programs specific to those cultural needs is definitely important.
Other panelists?
I think that one of the things, can you hear me?
Yeah.
One of the things that I always listen and one parent even said it as a positive, feedback for us, is that family engagement it takes different ways to do it. It's not always attending, or it's not just attending a session or being present, because as we have mentioned, parents work long hours, 2-3 jobs. No, they may not have the time to come to a meeting or to do a activity or do a workshop, but they can participate in their own homes. So that's sometimes that we make the mistake, say, oh, the family's not engaged because they did not come, but they may be. If we find another way to reach them at home, they will be engaged if we give them the tools. So we just need to find a way to reach families where they are and where their situations are. I think that's the most common. And another one that we're working on right now with the Office of Head Start is educating the staff that are working with families on what the family background is. Like I mentioned earlier, we have families have indigenous background, Mexican background, Guatemalan, different areas. But they're all different. We're all Latino, but we're different. So we need to understand that particular culture, general culture. So we have, right now it's in draft, but the Office of Head Start, through the national centers, are working on a resource where they're going to give staff just flyers, just highlighting the geographic area where the family will be, the background, their beliefs, their traditions, the general values of that particular group. So then they will be able to be building relationships with the background knowledge and then listen to the families. So that is also a mistake to just think, okay, all Latino families were all the same, all our values are the same, because we come, from Latin America, but we're not. So I think it will be best to be more informed about what the families really concern.
So, just as has been mentioned, I think also that reaching out to them where they are is key to being able to engage them. Many times we do activities, and the people who attend those activities are usually the parents that are more or less engaged. The ones that are kind of different, not engaged, those are the ones that we really need to reach out and find a way of getting to them. I think that when we do those outreach events, the one-on-one is so important. We live and breathe all these topics day in, day out, but for them, it's really, really very, very strange to them. So it is necessary for us to kind of analyze and use the information for them and find them where they are, those that are not the typical, parents that do engage with us.
So Nathan, let's start with diversity of the Latino community. We are a very diverse community. Asian, white, black, every demographic you think is different, it all falls within the Latino community. The other thing is that we're not all Mexican. So as much as I feel very Mexican because I got that outlet from the government of Mexico. And but when you say Happy Cinco de Mayo to a Nicaraguan or an Uruguayan, they kind of look at you and say, "We're so happy about it." But just keep that in mind. And Hispanic Heritage Month is Hispanic Heritage Year, thanks to our friends at Univision and a lot of others that we're able to celebrate it year-round, and Alejandra and others that are working on that. But you have to understand that just celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month also should be more than just changing the menu, the chips and salsa, and the color scheme in your cafeteria. And diversity even falls within our individual subgroups. So a Salvadoran from Washington, D.C. is very different than a Salvadoran from Atlantic. A Cuban from Miami is very different than a Cuban in New Jersey. A Mexican in Dallas, Texas is very different than a Mexican in the same state of Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. And let's not forget our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters. The island is very different than the other island of New York. It's also very different than Orlando. So you have to understand understand that the Latino community is a very diverse community, and we celebrate diversity within our communities. And we have pleitos, but we have a lot of commonalities that we have.
Talking about the diversity in the communities. I'm from New York, but I'm originally Dominican, my parents, and yes, I got that one.
I could name every single.
And the thing with that is that I'm from New York, and in New York, there's a big mixture, so you can't really tell one from the other. We all speak loud and we're all obnoxious. When I moved to Georgia, I can't tell you how many times I was called mixed. I'm like, it's not a bad thing, but I'm Dominican. There's a difference. Yeah, so the thing was, when I started working with all the Hispanics in the community, they couldn't figure me out. They were like, you look American, you look this. I was like, it doesn't matter what I look like, it's what I'm gonna do for you. And a lot of the problems that I had were, being that they were different, and our culture different, they were coming from different communities, different countries. We all had one goal in our eyes, which was get our children better educated. We're all the same. We have just that one goal. We want our children to be better educated. We want them to get a better job. Instead of having mama or grandma watching the kids all day, grandma is usually one that stays with the kids while everybody else in the household is working. That's how we do in the Hispanic communities where, in Georgia. I've worked with a lot of families like that. Grandma, all she wants to do is watch Univision. She doesn't want to interact with them. So when I go into some of these families in their homes, I try to explain to grandma, you don't give coffee to a 6-year-old. You'll be stuck with the child on caffeine all day, and of course he's not going to want to study. So you have a lot of problems with the community, the culture of the Hispanic community trying to integrate to the American lifestyle. What the kids watch on TV is not what my household looks like. It's not. My house is not Miley Cyrus, and I don't work that way. Neither do half of the Hispanic communities that I work with. So one of the things that I try to do with them is try to integrate them into the system of knowing that, okay, we're in America and this is how we have to do things. Even though I know it's different, I mean, you can still have your French fries. If you want to add a little salsa to it, go right ahead. It'll work. You want to dip in the guacamole, you can do that. But try to mix in your culture with this culture. Now that you're in a different country, we got to try to integrate, not disintegrate.
I'm going to skip my second question because I'd rather hear from you. So if you want to go to the mic, I'll recognize you. And if you address your question to a panelist, we'll probably, in order to have more questions, we'll ask you to address one panelist, please.
I'm really excited everything that we have heard now. But one question that I have is what initiative for children with special needs? When I came to this country, I'm an immigrant and I have the opportunity to succeed. And I have 4 children. 3 of them will gifted and talented. My 4th one has special needs. So what initiatives, and I know that 35% of the children has special needs, what initiatives to teach us or to empower us to advocate for them is in the initiatives. And I heard the learning disabilities, but the others don't mention disabilities. So, thank you.
Who wants to address that? Who would like to address that?
So I'll mention what we're doing at the Department of Education, because we have an entire office just dedicated to working with our kids with disabilities. And so we are trying to make sure that that funding that's provided gets funneled down to the school district. But I'll tell you, there's information from our Office of Civil Rights that will, as a parent, give you the tools you need to make sure that your child is getting the services and attention they need. And we've got a data collection, the Civil Rights data collection, that'll give you an assessment on the school district where your child is, and it'll give you a sense of the services that are, if they're being offered or if they're not being offered, how you can use that information to better advocate for the special needs attention that your child deserves and has a right to in this country.
Yeah, but I was saying to the Hispanic community, or how that engagement occurs.
Well, with the Hispanic community, one of the things we're doing, we've got a big anniversary coming up. One of the things we're doing is trying to cultivate commitments to action, and that is one of the issues that we're really trying to focus on, getting more public-private partnerships to engage the Hispanic community, to increase services for Hispanic students that have disabilities. How do we better incorporate the partnerships from the community-based organizations and the school districts to work better together? So it's something we're working on. I hope to have information in September when we can announce those partners that came to the table.
Thanks for that great question. Can you please say your name and where you're from?
Okay. My name is Betty Garcia Tinsley, and I come from the hot state of Arizona. And I guess I'm going to take back off of my initial questions and ideas are for the Department of Education. As a program coordinator of Title VII Indian Education and having special needs students, and I also have my latest granddaughter is deaf, so I'm coming into all this information that is available for parents. So we see that we have all your special programs under ESEA. Most of them include funding for a liaison. Our liaisons at the school site are actually just doing attendance. They're doing attendance, trying to get the students into school, and that's absolutely necessary. But under Title VII, we work directly with our parents to educate them on the processes of advocacy, as well as allowing them information and to give us input for the hiring, not necessarily the firing, but the hiring of the people that was going to serve the community. And like all of you, my initial inset was in the communities, taking the teachers to the community so that the teachers see what our parents are facing. Okay, once the teachers see it, I think they have a better understanding of what's going on. So some of that work that I know that is available funding for them, I believe is being used improperly. You know, they need to train the teachers, and I'm going to share one other example that just happened recently, whereas you had administrators getting the grant for one of the programs, they come in, they want the parents to just sign off. They don't want to share information on it. Now, part of your requirements are to ask us to do a parent assessment, a student assessment, family community assessment, and get that information back and try to work on some of the things that they need. So how can we better educate our administrators to do those things and not be careful about the verbiage that they use within these communities, because some of the people working for them may be relatives, and sometimes they say negative things about them. And it's just a very tough situation. So, I mean, saying that, I'd like for you to maybe address what the Department of Education can help us do for all of our special programs, immediately special ed, migrant, Indian ed, programs that you're working with.
Thank you for your question.
Get that information out to them.
Sure. My go-to office at the Department of Education is the Office of Civil Rights, because that is the office that houses all of the education attorneys that will investigate if there's misuse of funds, will investigate if children are not getting the services they need. We'll investigate if the parents don't have access to translation. That is kind of the where you could get technical assistance. If there is a particular grant under Title VII where you're seeing that the objectives of the grant funding are not being met, then flagging that for the specific office at the Department of Ed is the first step. Right now, we are going through the reauthorization of the Elementary Secondary Education Act. That is a critical piece of legislation. It's the civil rights issue of our country. That is the baseline and foundation for if we're gonna get funding for parent engagement, if we're gonna get funding for teacher preparation. It's currently being debated on the House and Senate. That you'll hear tomorrow, the Secretary of Education will be here talking about the latest developments in ESEA, but I would recommend that your first stop is reaching out to the office where that grant is being funded for technical assistance, or just to flag what is happening in your local community, and to also use the Office of Civil Rights as a resource, because they also have various data tools. They have various regional offices with attorneys that can sometimes help troubleshoot.
Thank you. Next person, we'll just ask keep your question brief because there's a line and we won't get to everybody. Thank you.
No problem. Hi, I'm Robin Workman. I'm from Freeport, New York, and my question, my fellow New Yorker up there, Mercedes, is you. You use great word, integrate. Part of the problem, and I've been on RPTA for 13 years as a leader, is in my district, it is very heavily Hispanic. And we have reached out with bilingual flyers, all our phone calls are bilingual, we have translators at our meetings. And a lot of the things that you keep saying about parents working, well, our Hispanic people are not the only ones working 2 and 3 jobs. How do we, you keep talking about making them comfortable, but it's getting to the point where in at least my district, the parents who are doing it are getting very frustrated because we feel like we're reaching out and we're not getting the response that we're looking for. Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. Well, first you need to know what is the, I guess, the demographics of the community that you're dealing with. Because again, we're not all the same.
Oh, Dominican and Salvadorian.
What was that?
One.
Well, you could offer them some botones or some. Well, I would suggest trying to find out exactly with the community what seems. Try to find out with the community. Maybe they have different things that they're into as opposed to their education with their children. Because sometimes it's more than family that comes into part of this. Sometimes it's not that I just don't want to go spend time in my child's education and try to find out with the PTA. Sometimes I have like 1,001 things going on. And it's just not one person. Could you imagine if we all had a lot of things going on at the same time? That maybe that's one of the reasons why they're not, participating in, the PTA. But sometimes what I would do with mine is I would try to talk to them individually, find out what their story is, what can I do to help them, give them an incentive for them to come in. Not all the times is the food or the drink or ha ha ha. Sometimes there's a little more issues, a lot of more personal issues going on with the families that you would need to find out. But once you get to one, I guarantee you the other one will tell the other, that tell the other, that tell the other. Because sometimes you have to make that person feel comfortable in order for them to come in. And all you need is just one.
Thank you very much.
We have time for just one more question.
All right. Yanina Young from Louisiana PTA. In the district that I'm in, Hispanics be about 2%. In the district with New Orleans, after Katrina, a bunch of Hispanics came. My problem is not to talk to my Latinos to come and get involved. My problem is how do I make it basic enough of understanding for non-Hispanics to understand who we are? How can I give them a basic understanding? I don't want them to go to the library and just read Cinco de Mayo and think that that's what it is. But and my question is to Univision is, I love the Éxito program. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I want to bring something down to the students of understanding of their Hispanic classmates. So is there something in the future with that? Is there something that I can go, where can I research that to to bring it on a basic level to the kids of what their future is in their state?
I think that, from the focus groups we've done and everything, I think that education, kids and parents, but students themselves do understand that education is what's going to provide them with a successful future. So I don't know if you're having trouble in that area, but I think that that's a given. I mean, the thing with students is that they sometimes feel a little bit and it's a matter of class sizes and things like that, but that teachers are not really interested in them, that they're not really special to the teacher, and it's because teachers are taking care of 40 students in one class, that there aren't counselors available and things like that. So, but the fact that education is important, I think that I haven't seen that as a situation. Have you?
That wasn't pretty much the question. The question is, how do I get a non-Hispanic student or parent in my state understand what a Hispanic student is, to get them to be better acquainted and bring with that
I
gap?
think what would be interesting would be for our friends from Univision and others, that would be a great campaign to build out. This is for the Latino community, and you already do it, but actually have something that people can use, almost a toolkit for Latinos. And that's one of the things Bob was saying earlier, that he actually believes the gap is an opportunity to engage non-Latinos into the Latino community, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, even though we could call it slightly perverse. But I think it really is an opportunity, because it's going to take a collective effort. It's not just Latinos for Latinos, otherwise nothing's going to get done. Because it's what's best for the country. So I think that would be an interesting proposition. I know one of the things we're trying to work on with a group called Everify and Scholastic is a toolkit for Hispanic Heritage Month, but it's more of like a historical context and to learn about what the Latino culture has to offer and has offered over history. But I think that would be an interesting, this is our demographic. It's almost like in marketing terms, except put in a little more layman terms, what the Latino community is, how we work, how we think, what the diversity is, the best ways to reach us, the family, expansive family, and everything else that goes into us. I think that would be very interesting. I think you bring up a very good point.
I'll just add that the work of our office is trying to bring attention to the fact that the educational issues of the Hispanic community are mainstream American issues. So a lot of the times we are educating our non-Latino partners on the economic benefits of making sure that we have a cradle to career pipeline for this community, that we have degree completion for this community. So a lot of the things we do is not just work with the Hispanic community, but work with a lot of our mainstream partners to let them know, inform, and create awareness on this growing demographic, on the educational, the cultural, the linguistic needs, so that we can also make sure that they are getting the value added and that there's an asset-based narrative when we talk about Hispanics in education.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next panel is going to be bringing forward some of our, next panel is going to be bringing forward some of our own PTA leaders. And before we do that, I just want to thank this esteemed panel for their comments. I found it very helpful. I hope you did too. Please give them a round of applause. We're going to have some folks come and join us here in the front. And while they're coming, I will give you a little bit about their background. We'll wait just a moment. All right, we're ready to begin. Our next panel will consist of PTA leaders. We've heard from folks from many different walks who are here with us from their personal expertise. Now we're going to hear from your fellow PTA leaders who all have great stories to share May I have your attention, please? The three who are with us today all have great stories to share with us regarding their experience connecting their communities and schools, getting families more involved in education. Our first panelist is Mercedes Sandoval. She is a current PTA board member, and she's a past president of the New Mexico PTA. In addition to being heavily involved both with PTA locally and nationally, she's also worked with the National Spanish Spelling Bee Committee, the Albuquerque Youth Basketball League, and New Mexico Association for Bilingual Education. She's won numerous awards for her service, and she's a proud mother of two. Please welcome Mercedes. Fellow board member there going crazy. Our second story will come from Matthew John Rodriguez, who is the current president of the Illinois PTA. In addition to all of his work with PTA, he's also worked with other impressive organizations such as America's Promise, All Pro Dads, the White House Fatherhood Initiative, the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics, the Illinois Fatherhood Initiative, Mexican American Legal Defense Education Foundation, the Illinois State Board of Education, the Illinois Center for Adolescent Health, Attorney General Lisa Madigan's office, and Mujeres Latinos and Accident. When did you start? He is also the proud father to. Please welcome John Yeh. And lastly, we'll hear from Juan San Miguel. Welcome. Juan is the president-elect for the Alaska State PTA. And the person who's traveled. He is a retired Army sergeant who's been involved in PTA for many years. When not working in his role as president-elect of Alaska State PTA, he works to provide services to vulnerable adults and the elderly in Alaska through his company, Luis's Legacy. He's a proud father of 3 daughters and has 2 grandsons. PTA services must be in his family's blood because one of his daughters has also served as the president of PTA at Abbott Blue Elementary School in Anchorage, Alaska. We're excited to have Juan join us today. Thank you so much, Juan. Glad to have you here. So each of them is going to tell a story about their experience in working with PTA and trying to improve Hispanic family engagement. And we're excited to have them share this story. We'll begin with Mercedes and work down the line.
Buenos días. Buenos días. It is an honor to be here. My career in PTA began with a principal who really felt that PTA was important and PTA was the way to go. And so I became the first PTA president who was bilingual, the first bilingual parent who was even involved in the parent organization. We had an amazing president but could not communicate with the families that we served. And this is a dual language immersion school, so over 90% of our population were Hispanic immigrants, Latino immigrants. And so they reached out to me because they knew that I was bilingual. And I think that was the best thing that they could have done, because then I was able to reach out to parents within our school. And again, that one-on-one is the most powerful thing that you can do. Going to them. It is a school that parents are dropping their children off and coming into a school. I mean, we had a principal there for 23 years. And this is a dual language immersion school. So learning that second language was extremely important. It was a 50-50 model. And making those one-on-one connections proved to be the most effective tool. We were able to get more parents involved. We began an Embracing Fatherhood initiative that New Mexico PTA, in fact, Renata Liddy was one of the creators of the program. She will be the next PTA president for New Mexico. And in a community where the majority of the parents are immigrants, we have about a little over 400 students, and we had 169 men who attended. And it was those personal one-on-one connections that made that difference, because they felt that they were a part of a community. After that, I moved on eventually to New Mexico PTA and became the first bilingual PTA president for New Mexico. And of course, I moved on to national PTA. I became very passionate about it. In the meantime, I became involved with the New Mexico Association for Bilingual Education. And we began the first ever national PTA, National Spanish Spelling Bee, which was absolutely amazing. I feel that as I moved on and continued my education, I decided to attend university and am doing a concentration of bicultural bilingual concentration, where the majority of my classes will be in Spanish. I feel that as I became the family liaison of the school that I became the first PTA president at, I feel that I am modeling that to the parents, that anything is possible. The current principal that we have now, she wants me to tell a story to our parents because she wants our parents to feel empowered to keep going, to keep doing what it is that they need to do. I was empowered by my mother, who did not ever graduate from high school. My father had a 4th grade education. She empowered me to keep going. Spanish was my first language. I entered school without knowing English. But my mother at home taught me how to read and write in Spanish. And when I went to school, it was easier for me to learn English. I came back to America, and my mother is from here, and my father is from Mexico. Came back to America, and my English was broken, but my mother did not allow that to deter me from doing more for our community. And the gift that was given to me, I feel I need to give to parents. And that's why I am here today. That's why I made a last minute decision last year to run from the floor, because I need to represent. And I need to show people that by being inclusive and by reaching out to each and every person and bringing them to the table is the most powerful and effective tool and the most powerful gift that you can give anyone, because we are all here for all children, not just for our own.
Mercedes, next we have Matthew. So that's a hard act to follow, but I'll try, and I'll give a disclaimer that being Cuban, we speak really fast, and I have a lot to say, so I'm trying to keep it short, because I have to give one some time to speak. My venture, first of all, if we're going to keep it just PTA, like I said, I do have a lot to say, but if we're going to keep it to PTA, was my son at 5 years old, I received a phone call. He was in kindergarten saying, from the teacher, I worked for an airline, so I was in Minneapolis at the time, and he was in Chicago. I used to commute back and forth. It's very common in the airline industry. However, I got a phone call in Minneapolis saying, your son's mom won't answer, and you need to come take this child and don't bring him back until he's medicated. Of course, I had a problem with that because I didn't make that determination, so we get into the whole thing of how does ADHD work and so on and so forth. And I was like, well, wow, I need to figure out what's going on with my son and be there for him. And I tried to get involved with the PTA. In that first year of kindergarten, I signed up they had the membership table, right, which is the what do you call it, white elephant, the black elephant in the room, or whatever you want to call it, where there's a lot of people saying that they want to involve and they want to integrate and they want diversity, but their actions show very different situations. So I signed up to every committee on the wall, right? Room dad, book club, right? In elementary school, every single one, and didn't receive one single phone call. So I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So just then the few months passed, and I met the PTA president and said, hey, I've signed up for every committee that you have. How is it possible that I can't be used or help in any committee? And she said, oh, no, Mr. Rodriguez, it's okay. We don't need you. We already have a normal group of parents that do these things, and they're already trained. So, maybe next year we can try something. And as you can imagine, that really wasn't my path because I'm here today, right? And let's verify that. So let me just clarify that I don't start my presidency for another 5 days of being the first Hispanic male president. And so I know, and that's only because Juan is 8 hours behind me. But to that point, in Illinois, I know that we mostly think of Chicago, but we have more Latino students than just in Chicago, right? And really, what helped me, even as I forced myself into PTA, I would say, because I really did force myself in there, and wasn't having no for an answer, but there's not many immigrant families, many Hispanic families that are going to do that are going to stick to it and say, no, I'm not taking no for an answer. So with that said, junior high, I was the PTA president of my son's junior high. It was very interesting with a whole bunch of whole female board saying this is how we always do things. And when my son at 7th and 8th grade, right? In 8th grade, I went to my first state convention, which most of the local units don't even hear there is a state convention or a national convention for that matter. And I sat next to Chuck Sailors, who was president-elect. That was good or bad, depending on how you seize the situation. Because what I told Mr. Sailors is, well, PTA is just a fundraising group. Why would anybody want to continue? And you can imagine what his answer was as president-elect that I did not know at the time, obviously. And so, anyway, beyond him answering that we're actually more about advocacy, which has become my passion, guys. I didn't know anything about legislation. I didn't know anything about advocacy. I didn't even know it was a world, right? Like currently, you don't know it's a world that's involved. So through that, Armin Alvarez invited me to my first Emerging Minority Leadership Conference. I've made lifelong friends, forever treasure, and she's helped me develop not only skills. I would never imagine public speaking. That's not one of my worlds, at least at that time, right? At work, I was one of those parents with 2 and 3 jobs my whole entire life. I tell my oldest, he's 20 years old now. I know that was, I only immigrated a couple years ago, and I was 13 when I got here, so you can imagine I'm only a few years older. So, but in all seriousness, my oldest is 20 years old, and I told him, listen, you have seen your father go to school, have gone to college his whole entire life. I've been working 2 jobs, I've been working 3 jobs, and going to school on top of it. Not sleeping, I used to be really good and could get at least almost 4 days in of not sleeping, but now I'm only up to 3, so I'm obviously aging at this point. But really the significance is that a lot of people do ask me that. I've facilitated the job, I've learned the leadership skills that have been able to help me move through the ranks, right? I'm manager of the aircraft maintenance planning department at a major airline right now, and these leadership skills that I've developed through the PTA and the fascinating opportunities, guys, I can't even tell you, right? Working with the White House Holiday Initiative, who in the right world would imagine a little give and give, go to meet, right? And work with all these people, working with Melda, working with Tony Dungy, taking pictures with Tony Dungy, dude, holy crap, oh my God. Working with Alma and Colin Powell, it was just absolutely, with America's Promise, it's just absolutely amazing opportunities that we've had with PTA, and that I've been able to take those skills home and help develop my personal skills to be able to move forward, which is an awesome example for not only my kids, but I make sure that I make an example for every other kid. And that's why I do the work that I do tirelessly. I pick the shift that I pick 12 and a half hours at night so that I can do all my PTA, which is my real work, during the day.
That is a Yupik word for hello. I stand here, first of all, honoring the Alaska Native culture by wearing their jacket. So, a lot of people ask me when they first hear Juan from Alaska. What in the world is Hispanic or Alaska? Well, that's where life took me. That's where I ended up at. And That's where I enjoy being, because I like the cool weather. This hot weather, 100-degree weather is no good for me. So we have Hispanics in Kodiak, Unalaska, Dutch Harbor, Bethel, Nome, and in our northernmost community of Barrow. That's where all the, a lot of that North Slope oil comes from, if you don't know. Let me give you some demographics about Anchorage, because that's where I'm from. In Anchorage, when I got there in '92, we had 1,596 students, Hispanic students enrolled in that school district, and 3% of it, that was the total amount. In the 1990 census, there were 9,258 Hispanics in Anchorage. In the 2001 enrollment, there were 2,897 Hispanic kids in Anchorage, which was 6% of the population. And the Anchorage census was 14,799. So yes, we do have Hispanics in Anchorage at least. The last year's enrollment was 5,443 students, which is 11% of the population. And in the 2010 census, we had 22,000 Hispanics in Anchorage. I would like to also show how diverse the Anchorage community is. Our top 3 high schools, the top 3 high schools, most diverse high schools in the nation are in Anchorage. Okay, that's East, Bartlett, and West. We have 7 of the most diverse middle schools in the nation in Anchorage. We have 19 of the top 20 most diverse elementary schools in the nation. That's how diverse we are. Mountain View, which is the north side of Anchorage, is the most diverse community in the nation. That's how we are. That's how I love the community in Anchorage. We have 97 languages spoken. Back when my daughter, and my PTA president daughter is standing right there, so. She's also state secretary. When I was asked to be involved when she was in grade school, and I became a vice president just for 1 year, and I told the president that at that time from the same elementary school that she was, my grandkids are at right now, she asked me to be involved, and I said I'm limited because of my job, but I'd be more than happy to be involved. So I became involved. Fine. A couple of years later, my daughter's in high school. They said, we don't want you involved. So I didn't get involved. I mean, I spoke with the teachers, believe me, they know who I was, but I wasn't involved in the PTA. Several years, about 5 to 6 years ago, that same president at my elementary school was the state president. She came back to me and says, Juan, I have a special project for you. Would you like to be involved? I didn't know what it was. She said, okay. I said, okay, of course I will. So she sent me to EML in Atlanta. And from that point on, I've been very involved. Very involved. There are a lot of kids in Alaska that don't have a voice. I am trying to be that voice for those kids. If you look on my jacket, you have kids all on the red. One voice, all these kids. Okay, just like our motto says, every child, one voice. Not just in the Hispanic community, and I'm proud to be a Puerto Rican, from the island of Puerto Rico. I'm proud to be there. I speak some Spanish, but I am proud. You know when you've made it to the big time, one of the things I say is, if you make a difference in the life of someone for just one day, then your life is worth living. I know my life was worth living when I went to the Alaska State Legislature, and our Senate President introduced me as Mr. Alaska PTA, or PTA Alaska. So I know I have a voice in the state government because of PTA. I'm involved to make sure that every child has that opportunity. And I'd like to introduce, where is he back there? Christian, stand up.
I've got his headphones on.
Just tell him to stand up. Little Christian is my grandson. Not just for him, but for every child. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Can we all give them a great big round of applause? And now I'll turn this over to Hope.
Thank you. Did everyone have a good time?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, we got a lot more of that. We continue to work hard. I'll be remiss we have one of my guests here today. She's 2015 Miss New Mexico, and she's a principal of Adobe Acres Elementary School, 80% Hispanic. She's doing a wonderful job there, and I hope that she'll be a great ambassador for us. Amber, please stand. Please stand. For all the PTA members will be rooting for you to win Miss America in July. So we really appreciate it. Nathan, thank you for doing a great job. I thank everyone for joining us so we can see some great solutions for a better engaging our Hispanic community. I hope that this symposium has inspired some folks here today. And I said we're live streaming this, so a lot more people are seeing it, and hope that some solutions and ideas discussed here today will create a better environment for our children. We thank again the panelists who are here today, who are committed to providing engaged citizenry with our education system. And I am pleased to be joined here today with Antonio from the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and Alejandra from the White House to make another announcement. So please come forward.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with you all a little bit about the upcoming historic and significant anniversary celebration that the White House will be having, focused on educational excellence for Hispanics. Our White House initiative was created in 1990 at the urging of civil rights organizations and at a time when we had one of the highest dropout rates in the country. If you fast forward to today, we can attribute a lot of the progress we're seeing to the great work that you all in this room are doing on behalf of children, on behalf of our teachers every day. Today we have a 15% degree completion rate for the Hispanic community. In 1990, it was at 8%. So while the trends are moving in the right direction, we have to do more. And I wanted to share with you two opportunities of how you could get involved. One is help us identify those bright spots across the country that are doing great work for Hispanic kids and families. We're going to have an online catalog that we want to roll out in the fall. Basically, when we have policy discussions, we want to be able to point to the programs that are helping our kids with disabilities, the programs that are helping our kids on early learning. We don't want any excuses from policymakers saying, well, we don't know of any good family engagement programs. So that's the reason why we're collecting those bright spots. There's a nomination form on our website at ed.gov Hispanic Initiative. The other opportunity is a cultivation of commitments to action. We're talking about opportunities. This is an opportunity to get involved and to say, I'm committing to do this for the Hispanic community. And I'm working with the private sector, I'm working with the philanthropic community, I'm working with nonprofits. This is an opportunity for us to have a national call for commitments to action to continue to move the needle forward on progress for the Hispanic community. So I'm pushing our philanthropic partners. I'm getting some exciting commitments coming through the door that are going to be rolled out. The majority of them will be rolled out in September. But this is an opportunity for us to close the gap on STEM education. How do we continue to invest in STEM education in those school districts that are not offering the full range of STEM courses? How do we increase early learning in those communities that don't have access to high quality early learning programs? So you can make a commitment to action, help us identify those nonprofits in your organization, leverage our anniversary to go to a philanthropic partner and say, I want to put a commitment to action on the table. I'll give you an example. When we issued this call for commitments to action, the city of Houston, basically they have a working group and they're looking to make 10 commitments to action. These are commitments that are going to stay in the community, that are going to help continue to advance progress for our kids. We're seeing commitments from philanthropic partners, grant makers. I want to see more on the parent engagement. So it's an honor to be able to work with you all, with the PTA, with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. They've been great partners for us in this work. We are really trying to position the conversation for the next 25 years. So how do these commitments, in the absence of a reauthorization on ESEA, in the absence of congressional budget action, how can these commitments continue to help you in your community? So a lot of the information can be accessed online at ed.gov Hispanic Initiative. I want to turn it back to my friends here because I do have to give you the floor. We've been working closely with Antonio on making sure that we have representation. When we talk about family and parent engagement, the PTA is really leading that discussion for us. And so to be able to have a conversation where we can acknowledge and recognize this growing Hispanic community and the fact that we have to do more at the leadership levels of the PTA, at the community level in our schools, and with our parents, I just want to say thank you for leading this work on behalf of our kids, on behalf of our country.
Thank you so much. National PTA is so excited to announce that we have answered the White House call to action to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the White House Initiative for Education Excellence on Hispanics. The National PTA has the pledges below. We will educate both PTA leaders and school leaders about the effective and meaningful engagement of Hispanic families by hosting webinars, expanding our diversity toolkit for local PTAs, and thoughtfully incorporating resources in the National PTA Every Child Emotion Focus Initiative and identifying culturally competent improvements to our current programs. We further pledge to increase the amount of Hispanic PTA leaders by launching the PTA Family Engagement Network that will focus on training and supporting leaders on effective family engagement to strengthen our family schools. Lastly, the National PTA pledges to cultivate new partnerships and grow existing efforts with serving other Hispanic families by collaborating with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and continuing to work closely with other nonprofits and government entities. Wow, that's so exciting for all of us. We look forward for this further work. And Antonio, I would like to publicly thank you for your partnership and your friendship. And I would like to turn it over to you for any final remarks, and then we'll close out.
Just a heartfelt thank you for everyone's leadership in this room. It all starts with you. And I really do appreciate the National PTA and local PTAs for embracing our community. Got some great ideas as well. We're here to listen to you. And I was talking to Bob about creating something that can be handed out to National PTA members to learn more about our community through some sort of an app or a toolkit. And we'll be working on it. It's all from your question. And I think it was a great question. So we react to things very quickly because there's such a need. It'll take a collective effort. And Alejandra's leadership, I have to tell you, we're in very good hands in Washington, thanks to Alejandra and the work that she's doing through the initiative. We work very closely with them on various areas, but this one is really, really important to her. And while we were talking, she immediately was like, we need to do more in terms of kids with disabilities and challenges. So she's listening everywhere that she goes around the country. And I want to congratulate her mother again, who became a citizen last week. made me think of when I became a citizen with my late mother, and I think I was 27 years old, and I just couldn't quite understand, because I had lived here for a very long time, and they were kissing the linoleum, she was hugging the Russian and Korean women, and they were wrapped in flags, and I said, Mommy, you guys are freaking out. You know, we've been here for a while, and she said, you will always be an immigrant, always think like an immigrant, always think about what you're offering the United States, not what the United States is giving you. And you have to be the biggest patriot that you can possibly be, because we owe this country a lot by having them accept us. And so congratulations to your mommy, and I'm thinking of mine every time I see this Lord's Supper. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you all. I need our national board members to go ahead and head to the auditorium. That would be very quick.